welcome back, Richard, to the show. Great to have you here. And for the
Pleasure
viewers,
to be here as always.
I was going to say, for the viewers actually who missed the pre-conversation that we had before we went live, we were talking about the pains of dishwashers actually. So if you want to know, drop it in the comments below exactly what it was about the dishwashers that we were so upset about.
It's a deep and mysterious topic.
How have you been, Richard?
Good, apart from the dishwasher incident.
Of course. Well, guys, like we said, drop it in the comments. Get that engagement going. Let's get that algorithm pumping. #dishwasher. But before we start talking about dishwashers, let's talk about a quick update in terms of what's been happening with Saito since we last spoke. And we've got a few things on the agenda today, Richard. So let's kick off like we normally do. Let's talk a bit about the tokenomics update. I mean, the last time we spoke, you flagged it was coming. Mm-hmm. What has happened exactly?
So I think it's really mostly just sort of setting out where we are in the roadmap and what that means for the tokenomics and clarifying where we are and making a few adjustments to, some of the parameters, not really big changes, but things that we can now settle because we've moved along in the roadmap to where we are. So some big highlights are we'd outlined, as we've always wanted to have a kind of foundation, really being the primary driver for strategic decision making and kind of running the project eventually, as the community and the sort of people involved matures to a place where we can have that, and that would obviously have commensurate funding. But in flagging that creates in certain circles an ability to FUD and to misinterpret what that's there for. So we've basically said, well, that group would have the power to suggest or to look at forking to create its own funding. So we'll move to that model and we'll take that out of the maximum supply. So it would be a fork to do that in the future. So maximum supply is now listed and registered at 8 billion. Mm-hmm. And then we set up for people basically, there was a team allocation of a certain size. That's now all allocations have been made and we didn't use all of that. So some of that's going back into the kind of rewards, etc. We clarified how that's working. And we also talked about how that's going to be, kind of computationally, algorithmically set out and what we need to do to decide how those curves look in terms of whether we do advertising faucets and other network stimulus, along with what kind of rewards we'd like to put in place to ensure the mechanisms we have to secure the network at low transaction volume as a kind of bootstrapping thing are rewarding to people who are participating in that. So that's like what kind of APY would we give on a stake? And that's a consensus question. It's not a how much money would we like to give people question.
Well, it's always a fine balance. I mean, rewards is always a fine balance as well, right? Because you need to kind of find that trade-off where because it can also be detrimental if the rewards are quite high.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's always the thing. It's the same as with something like an advertising faucet that's designed to be able to create instant business models for people who are building on the network. If that's too generous, people will build dross to get the subsidy, right? And they'll game it. Yeah. If it's not enough, it doesn't do anything. It's just giving away tokens for no reason because it's not actually helping anyone build a business.
Exactly. Right?
So making sure we have mechanisms that can adjust, et cetera, to do that and sort of distribute those tokens in a way that doesn't undermine the holdings of existing holders, but that supports those, but then is also a genuine stimulus to get people interested in the project. So people can go and listen to the space if they want the kind of full discussion of that. And we've also updated the tokenomics document, so wiki.saito.io/tokenomics. You can go and look at the sort of updated diagrams. I mean, the numbers are essentially the same. There's just some adjustments in things like I said, the core numbers. And people can have a look there and get up to speed on what's happening. But I think that sets out nicely the next sort of year and a bit for people to see very clearly what's going to happen and get some clarity, as well as give the community tools to fend off FUD, which we'd had some of before. So,
and if you like what you've just heard, make sure to smash the like button as well at the same time.
Smash it.
See,
I'm getting better at it. Smash. I've got an action and everything.
There you go. If you love Saito, if you love decentralized chain, and you love the community, drop a follow as well. We're pulling out all the stops today, Richard. So let's move on to our next topic, which is the state of the apps. I mean, again, you've been having quite a lot of spaces lately, actually. So last night we were discussing apps, Red Square, video calls. I think it might be good just to pull out some highlights from there as well, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, so I think we're making a real effort to... Spaces are a really good communication tool, I think. They give people who want real detail and real depth time to do that. We can have them be interactive and get some questions. And it's a good way to then also think to base our regular communications around. And it's something the community seems to really enjoy. So we are upping those. And last night we talked about the state of the application development suite, where we are. We had Dan, one of the sort of core developers, come in and chat with us as well about where we are. And then some key takeaways around that were, we kind of gave some highlights on how we've moved in the last year. And it's really nice to have that kind of longer look back and see how far we've come. And then sort of show to people how that's setting the ground for... We talked a bit about third-party devs and how we think they'll come about. We're sort of not imagining there'll be Oracle or some giant group who need a lot of hand-holding and all of those sorts of things. It's going to be a young Zuck who's got an idea to make something that no one's seen before, and it's going to work and be possible on Saito really quickly and be able to grow and scale. So we're making sure that those people have the ability to kind of throw in chat and video calls when they build their toolkit, for free. And it's really easy to kind of put something together. So the UI components and all of those things, but making it peer-to-peer while we do that. And so we talked about how that relates to Red Square and where we are, and how we're trying to then get real feedback from people who are using use-based feedback on where are we between something you'll use because you like Saito and you're a community member to something you'll recommend to your friends and make your main social. Like, how do we move between those two? And the best way to find that stuff out really is when, we were saying the best feedback we get is when someone says, I was trying to do this and I just couldn't, and that didn't work. We're like, oh, yes, okay, I see what you're saying. Rather than, oh, you should have this feature because somebody else has it.
I think that's a key thing that you mentioned, because a lot of the time, in this space, because there are so many projects that have done things in one way or another way, that have found growth doing this or growth doing that. They're not all the same. Actually, the sort of the ingredients that it takes in order to kind of get something moving in a certain direction are always different from platform to platform, from project to project. But the bit that you mentioned there before, though, I always find the stickiness, the user stickiness, the reason why somebody comes back is because you've taken something that somebody's just trying to do, and like you said, it becomes like an aha moment. Like, well, that's what it is that we needed in order to, because then that basically takes your supporter to the next level, which is when you have the cert scale of 1 to 5, would you recommend? Oh, you want to get that 5? Yes, I would recommend, because they're solving something.
Because I liked it. Well, I just said about having a longer DM conversation with the Saitos who had some in-depth questions, and I said, let's move this onto Saito, and we connected shared keys, and then we moved it into the chat box that you have there in a DM on Red Square. And it was little things that showed me where we're falling short. Like, I'd never used it to respond to a number of things in a row, but when you do, it's hard to tell where one leaves off and the other starts. So it's a spacing issue, and you don't think, oh, that's key software development. But that makes a big difference between if you've had 2 or 3 people chatting, how easy is it to use, etc. So we talked about how we really love when the community gets involved and they come back with, I was using it and then this stuck for me. And that was great because we got a really good response to that. And we've seen much more chatter on Red Square about where we're at from that. So I think that's really positive, and it's got a real vibe going around. So
on the topic of community involvement, we're going to introduce another section to our interviews, actually. So if you want to ask those questions to Richard, no matter how personal, drop it in the YouTube video. But in the last couple of days,
keep the dishwasher talk clean, people.
Of course, exactly. But we had a couple of questions on the YouTube videos. But in all seriousness, if you do want to ask Richard a question, of course, you can reach Richard on Telegram, on Twitter, But you can also now reach Richard through my YouTube comments and have them asked and have your name dropped as well. How's that for 15 minutes of fame? But we have two questions. The first one, I'm not going to try to pronounce the username, but it's a long one. But they said, what will happen to Saito in Binance Smart Chain? Do we have any articles or info regarding what will happen once Binance ceases to support BUSD?
Yeah. This is actually a good one. This is one of those things where I sort of saw it, Cointelegraph article, something go past, and I was like, Binance will stop supporting BUSD. And I was like, huh, what? Double checked. Yes, it was verified. I actually asked someone I know who's at Binance and said, like, how's in a role there? I was like, is that so? And he was like, what? And looked it up and said, yes, it is. It's not what you think. They're not dropping it. So basically, we're just looking to, we'll do a couple of things together and I'll put out a post on it. We'll move to V3. So we're on just the V2 for Pancake there. So I'll do some announcements. We'll remove the liquidity, or we'll shift it in tranches between V2 and V3, and we'll announce the stable. There's a couple of things in the Binance system. There's the FDU, FSUDT. It's the one they seem to be using mostly in the Binance space, the Binance themselves. So there's a couple of options of front runners. So when it becomes clear the most usable alternate stable, we'll just move the liquidity there and move to V3 at the same time, and we'll flag that and then update all the relevant blog posts. So if people search, they'll be able to find the right place. So that's on our radar. We've got until February or so before Binance stop the support there, and they're backing the BSD as they always have. So it's not a risk. So it's really just a timing thing to move across, and then obviously we'll move the reserves we have across the relevant stable as well. So nothing will really change in terms of usability, ability to purchase Saito.
There you go. So that's one question down. We have another one. We have another one from Jacob W927. I can pronounce that one quite easily. A couple of days ago. When can we realistically expect full mainnet to retail?
I think this is one of those piece of string questions. Like full mainnet are you talking about a full set of tools, etc.? We don't expect the utility of the ERC20, the BSC, other wrapped Saito to go away, because it'll be a way for people to obtain tokens in a well-supported environment, etc., and then move them onto mainnet to do certain things. So it depends which parts of the feature set you're talking about. Some will never go away. We're not going to move away from having any wrapped tokens, probably in a hurry. We're looking at probably within the year having the chain with all of the consensus features and any changes to those needing to be a hard fork, so that there's no that all nodes are either not validating and not valid on the current chain, or they've updated so that they are. I'd say we're looking at a year, possibly 18 months with that, but I'm hoping close to a year, because that's when I think we can realistically get the work done on consensus that we need to in the next few months, get all those variables set. And then it's stuff like broader toolkit, there's a huge amount to the ecosystem, off-chain wallets and key management tools and things which, exist for the existing chains, and they need to be built out by us and community and vendors and the people who want to use it. And then also, getting exchanges and things to support your chain is another whole step as well. So there's a lot of milestones along the way there. I'm not sure which one specifically is being asked, but hopefully that's a useful answer.
I like what Rich is doing there. He's forcing engagement on the video. So if you want to know the answer to the next question, make sure you drop it in the comments below.
If you like what I did, smash the like button. Smash the like button. I'll get good at this one day.
You're already a pro, Richard. You're already a pro. Well, look, Richard, as always, I love these catch-ups that we have. I'm sure the community do. And if you do, guys, make sure you smash the like button. But on a serious note, thank you, Richard, for joining us. And let's catch up on the next update.
Thank you.